What are people worried about these days? Like, are they worried about the economy, or they are worried about the health crisis that we're at?
Both. I think they're now realizing the economic impact that will happen. I think most people were starting to say, okay, let's focus on the health wise. And then when they start seeing their friends not getting paid, paychecks are getting slashed by half, I think people are resonating more that we're going to have an economic crisis really soon.
This has started already, man. It started already, like people getting half of their paycheck, layoffs started.
Yes, actually, we were having a conversation, me and my fiance, the other day, and one of our friends texted us that in Jordan, from next month, they will start getting paid half the salaries. And one of her friends, she got laid off because she was a student worker, and student workers, contractors get laid off first.
I actually read an interesting information that actually 3.3 million people actually applied for unemployment.
Not 3.3 billion, did you say?
Million.
Yes, actually, the new initial claims in the U.S. jumped from 200,000 to 3 million.
Wow.
And initial claims means people getting laid off from their job.
This doesn't include the people that already doesn't have a job, right? So the unemployment rate, as far as I know, it works in a way that if you didn't find a job for a period of a year, you're taking out from the unemployment rate.
Yes, it's actually who are actively looking for a job. So if you're not actively looking anymore, you're not within the calculation.
You count as a person who's not looking if you didn't find a job within a year, right?
I forgot what was the time frame. I think it's less than a year.
Wallah, even.
Yeah, I think it's less than a year.
Any ideas who's eligible for unemployment payment?
Benefits? I think anybody who got laid off, salary, who stopped working, anybody whose hourly wage can claim the benefits.
Have you read anything about Amazon and Walmart offering jobs? I've read an
offering jobs.
Yeah.
I haven't seen, but I definitely know, because one they're a customer in our industry, that they are booming right now. It's their time. So there's a lot of product going out of factories, out the warehouses for them, and they definitely need help in that side.
They didn't close yet. Everything is functioning normally.
I mean, sorry to interrupt. I can bring the example of Italy, where Amazon basically deliveries are very slow. I mean, they have high priorities for like essential goods, but like I ordered an office chair, and it's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it takes more time. So they're definitely working a lot, but their logistics are already very, very complicated, and like they can go faster than this, basically.
No, I know. I wanted to order a face mask from Amazon because I can't find it anywhere. And the lowest delivery time that I saw was 2-3 weeks.
Wow.
So no, it's definitely affecting the supply chain all over,
Yeah, go ahead, Francesco.
And even more, I think, like, because I mean, especially you work in supply chain, you said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially that China's kind of like the engine of the global supply chain of logistics. I think this will have huge repercussions also in the future. I mean, I don't know, what's your take on it?
It will definitely have. Just to clarify, I work in the supply chain automation industry rather than the supply chain industry, So,
okay.
But in general, the way I look at it, when I see so China being the biggest exporter country in the world, and now they're ramping up and becoming live again. But if you look at the rest of the world, we're still having the pandemic and actually dealing with it. So while China is recovering and trying to go back to normal, the other countries are trying to shut down and lock down. And if you look at the PMI index for China, and you see a huge drop, and the same day they issued the lockdown. And throughout history, if it goes back to normal, which is the 52 range, it usually takes a year for the manufacturing cycle to go back.
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, with other countries now having restriction and trade might get delayed, this time frame might also get delayed. So the whole supply chain will be delayed. You know.
Do you think China past month is US in the future, in the near future?
What I mean.
Like the major drop in, like you said, this drop will take a year to recover. The US, like the stock market has
From a manufacturing side, because we are experiencing a supply shock right now.
Okay. So we're talking about the supply chain now. We're not talking about the financial market.
No. I mean, if you want to correlate how this all comes together with the financial market, and I think one indicator that is really nice to look at right now, I know we have a lot of indicators that showing that are we going into a recessionary phase, but one indicator that really highlights this period is the ISM index or the PMI index, which tracks the manufacturing side. And if you look throughout the years and you plot it against the S&P, you'll see that they always trend together. So whenever our manufacturing goes down, our financial economy goes down with it. But what's so interestingly, if you look from the end of 2018 till now, our ISM index, manufacturing index, was actually going down because arguably we're having a manufacturing recession, while at the same time our financial markets are trending up, which is really bizarre to me. But what I can tell from this, our real economy right now is being led by the financial economy rather than the manufacturing economy. And people thought this will trend to 2020 and the economy will pick up since the financial market are going up and having more highs. But the truth is the economy is not simply that robust. You know, it's really fragile and it's not going to contain it.
Especially now when we look at the different forms of capitalism that's going on in China versus the US, where China, I mean, even though it's a communist country, but in reality, they have solid industrial capitalism. That at the end of the day, they manufacture stuff, they produce value. While in the US, the majority of the economy is in financial capitalism, which is the latest stage of capitalism that we're in, which doesn't really produce value anymore. This is scary. I've been reading at the beginning of the shock, there were lots of people predicting that this will be a siren to the Western countries to go back to manufacturing.
You can argue that. It depends. What do you see the word coming to in the next years? Are you thinking more technology or manufacturing? I mean, I kind of see the economy going more technological, and I see the power will be held by the country that has the more technological advancements, let's say, than manufacturing wise.
But technology isn't financial, you know.
But I think if you also look at the trend, I think most countries are kind of detaching their economic growth from their manufacturing power. And I think what we saw basically was the global outsourcing of manufacturing towards countries that actually guaranteed low production costs, kind of. So it doesn't make sense for, I don't know, let's say Italy or whatever to actually have a strong manufacturing base.
Exactly.
And countries are moving towards services and technology rather than sticking to manufacturing. So I think I really agree with you. Like in the future, this will even more and more actually.
Yeah, and I think this, like, we saw how Trump dealt with the Chinese giant Huawei, and the way they actually put the stop on them, because they're really scared of how the technology is going to shift if it goes to China or not.
Yeah.
But still,
and eventually, me and you can agree that the data is everything. You have the data, you have the upside.
How is the, like, away from technology and in industry, how is the general outlook now when you look at the American economy, man? Since you're a financial analyst, you have your own CFA certificate, you're in this, you're having a live action. Like, what is the general outlook from live from the US?
I think they're very divided to actually get a solid view of what do they want. I know they're a very core capitalistic society. I know millennials are trending the other way. And I just, the way I see it is depends on the generation. If the baby boomer gives the power to their millennials and all that generation shift happens, I see that the US is going to trend more to a socialist regime country. Maybe not, but it just depends how the baby boomers are going to take it.
And man, to this point, I mean, during upcoming elections, you have a really strong, let's say, candidate, which is Sanders, that's actually preaching and leaning towards that kind of progressive, socialist kind of ideology. Do you think actually this moment of crisis, and for instance, I don't know, probably the fact that a private health system is actually very hard to, I don't know, for the needs of the public with this coronavirus, that it will actually change stuff and actually make people more towards Sanders?
I think in general, the pandemic that we are having right now is going to have a lot of shifts in our societies in general. We're going to have generation shifts, what I see. I see that the millennials need to have control. I see that the millennials need to pay back their student loans. I see that the millennials need to afford a house. And this is not happening the way we are living right now. And maybe I'm saying this on a US economy scale because it's bigger. Maybe we don't have this stuff in Jordan, but it's also applicable. Like, does anybody in Jordan can afford to buy an apartment or a house? No.
I think it's pretty much applicable to any capitalist country right now.
No, one way or the other, man. Like this, I don't know. Do you think we're in a crash to start with, man? Let's focus on the main topic in hand. Like, do you think we're in a crash? We're in a recession? Do you think it's a corona thing? Like, it's a pandemic that affected the stock market? Or you think the crash was going to happen either way?
No, I think that crash was happening anyway. Because if I look back to 2016 and when the Fed tried to extend the cycle by starting the QE and dropping the rates, and they were successful to extend the cycle in 2016, but I don't see so much upside right now. So this relates to too many factors. Let me go back to the ISM index that I was talking about. So currently we're trending on a 50-point level, or 49.8. And 50 means we're neutral. Above 50 means we're in an expansion cycle, and below 50 we're in a contraction cycle. I personally see this index blowing up in the next few weeks below 45 or something. And most investors say if we're below 47, we're absolutely in a recession stage. But then you can come and ask me and be like, okay, the stock market doesn't work this way. Why are we talking manufacturing if the consumer confidence is at all-time high? Because if everybody's buying, stocks are going to keep going up, which is a valid question. But if you want to look at the confidence, consumer confidence, and what does it relate to? It really relates to the unemployment rate. We have low unemployment rates since the mid 60s, where we're currently trending at 3.5%, 3.4%, I forgot. And we were at 6% in 2016 when the Feds tried to extend the cycle, and they dropped that figure from 6% to almost 3.5%. Now, if the Fed want to extend the cycle again, I don't see anything I don't see any newer lows. I see we're only going to trend higher. I see we have more complications, more problems. Our continuing claims jumped higher, like we were talking about. They're 3 million this week, and I think we're going to have a huge effect on the unemployment rate, which is going to be heavily reflected to the stock market.
So, are you in the market? Are you in the market nowadays, or are you just too scared to enter?
No, I'm definitely out. And just to explain what kind of an investor I am, I'm a long-term investor, more or less. I like to have my speculation portfolio where I can do my day trade or whatever idea that I want to experiment. But in general, I'm a long-term investor. And when I look at the market right now, there's nothing wrong with cash. I would rather hold cash and definitely buy the dip because we're coming out of this crisis, and not everybody will come out. You need to have your due diligence and see which industry and which companies they will stay stable and actually come out of the tunnel and invest in them.
So the market will go lower. This is not the bottom.
No. I definitely don't think it's the bottom.
Because I mean, I also think currently stock prices are kind of drugged by all the financial policies enacted by the Fed and the government. So I think it's kind of a dead cat bounce, whereby they try to artificially kind of push them high. And I mean, this kind of solutions worked in 2008. Right now, I think it's much more. It's needed actually to sustain the market and actually make it grow. So
No, I agree. In general, we were overvalued. We had the longest economic expansion. At one point we have to go down. You know,
Man, the
the,
thing
the,
is, I see. I'm also having. I'm out of the market. I have cash. You have cash. Francesco, we had a conversation before. He's into cash. Wow. It's interesting to me. The least. It's interesting, man. That the more you understand financials and how it works, the more you're scared to join the market now. The more you inclined to keep your money in cash and wait. Hold your cash till the moment is right. I'm seeing lots of people getting straight into the market, buying the lows. Who I gotta invest. I'm waiting for the next step. Who,
yeah.
it's scary. It's scary. Seriously scary. Man. I'm trying to let people
It's
know that.
absolutely no, it's absolutely scaly. But if you're looking at a long-term perspective, you kind of fine. But one advice that I would make is do not buy fully this low. You should buy in batches, just as a general advice. Maybe you allocate 20% for this low, another 20% for the next low, and you average your cost. And when you look at a 10-year time frame, you're fine. Because, for instance, if you bought at the all-time high in 2007, before the stock market crashed, and you never sold, you stayed with your position, and you look at your position right now, you definitely have gained a lot. So in the long term, you're fine. But how much upside do you want to gain?
طيب, what do you think about shorting the stocks? Since if we're expecting a more downtrend, a bigger bear market, why not short?
Good question. I think shorting is good for people who can handle it, who have a high portfolio, a big portfolio. And the reason I say this is because whenever you're shorting, you're at higher risk because you're on margins. And two, in a bear market, you usually have huge pullbacks that happens. If I can give you an example, is this week. We had a huge pullback until Friday where the stock market closed down, but we almost had a 10% upside. If you were still on a short position, you are definitely getting squeezed out, you're getting margin calls, and you're probably liquidating your position, and which you're losing at this point. So you kind of need to have the balls to do it, and you need to have the capital to pursue it, if that makes sense.
it's definitely the fastest way to lose all your money.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And I think one big example is the Tesla stock. For the past couple of years, it's been a fight between bulls and bears and the dreamers, and this is going to be an innovative company. The fundamentals doesn't back it, but eventually the bulls won. But why? It was because of the Fed. Because the Fed injected so much liquidity into the market, the stock shot up, all the shorts squeezed and got out, and the stock exploded. Same thing happened with Apple.
We're seeing the same thing now. Like, even though we're technically going through a recession, but seeing a 2 trillion package relief, 1.5 trillion on repo payments, we're seeing 700 billion quantitative easing. We're talking 4.2 trillion dollars, man, injected in the economy now. Already the SP 500 increased 10% the past week. Do you think this pattern will sustain? Like, what is the difference?
I don't think it's sustainable because I think the market is leveraging out all the credit out there until all the credit is done, and then it's going to go sideways.
Well, how bad do you think it'll be?
It's hard to predict, but I can say it will definitely be bad. I mean, if we all agree that we're going into a recessionary phase, we anticipate a crash in the market. And if this prolongs, and it also depends on how much the coronavirus prolongs. If we're talking about a 1 month, 6 week time frame, it's different that we're talking about 2, 3 months of having full economic shutdown.
But generally speaking, how many months do you think the recession will last? Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? Are we talking years?
It's not months, definitely up to like a year. It depends how severe it is, but I would say a year to 2.
Do you think is there any way to solve the current problems or the problems that will come?
I think we're trending down. Absolutely. The only way I see it is we just got to protect ourselves from the lower lows and the bigger crisis. So I don't see a solution. I see more just save your butt kind of a way, because the only way we get out of this crisis is if we have a cure or a vaccine. Other than that, people will have to stay at home, social distancing. If anybody catch it again, it will come back again. So without a cure and a vaccine and a solid solution, I don't see a way out of it.
Basman, you're talking about the corona issue, the corona crisis, the virus crisis. Like earlier on this conversation, we kind of agreed that the recession, the crash was going to happen with or without corona. So I don't see how finding a vaccine will correlate directly,
I think that correlates to how severe the crash would be.
So okay.
So because you can talk about a recession, but we can also talk about depression. So because it's a totally different outlooks.
Can you briefly, man, explain the difference between a depression and recession?
Simple terms, just longer periods of recessions altogether.
10 years.
I don't know what's the right measure to say. What is it exactly? But it's a longer period.
The last depression we had was 1929, right?
Yeah, and then it ended with World War I, which usually that's the solution: a change of power.
This is scary, man. When you look at it, always at the end of the long-term debt crisis, we'll have a change in power, which kind of correlates, man, with Ibn Khaldun's logic, like his theory on the rise and collapse of empires. It's a pattern. It's a pattern that is going on, especially when we add to this whole equation the fact that war is the best stimulus to the economy.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you ask any American, they will tell you their economy is based on war. Like bluntly, anybody who understands the market, he will tell you the reason we had all this was because of the war that happened after the Great Depression.
This is general knowledge among American society, or only like educated ones?
More educated ones. No, I see what you mean.
It's scary, man.
And in general, the American is not well educated because part of the reason is because they cannot afford education. Simply put, it's if you want to learn, you need to have 30,000 debt behind your back. Not everybody wants to do that.
At least.
A friend of mine.
At least.
A friend of mine recently joined the army, the American army, because he got shitloads of student loan, and he found the best way to get himself out of his own debt crisis is to join the army.
Yeah, I mean, this also creates to the people. Like, that the student loans interests are incredibly high. I mean, if you're going into if you're getting an education for art, for instance, do not get a loan for 200,000. If you're going into the medicine sector, I know you're gonna repay it off. But if you're going into a sector, that's not gonna pay you off. It should be obvious not to do it.
Wallah, that dude, man, he made a risk. He got into filmmaking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, like, if you tell me he's going to be a doctor, I'll tell you, okay, I know he's going to pay it off in the next 5 years, or a lawyer. But
and then most of the people actually end up doing like side jobs to pay for the loan, and they don't actually manage to pursue what they actually studied for.
No, and I don't think Americans realize the crisis they have in their student loan debt. It's incredibly high. It's not sustainable, and I don't know what they're gonna do. Are they gonna write off the debt, or I don't know.
Do you think it's a valid possibility or it's far-fetched?
Depends who's gonna get elected.
So it's not far-fetched. There's a possibility.
It's yeah, and then is it in the near future? I don't know.
It sucks if I paid all my debt and the next year, man, Bernie became president and he can't.
I know.
Fuck, I missed it.
And
طيب,
yeah,
gold and silver.
gold and silver, best safe haven assets right now. If you wanna invest in gold and silver, I'll definitely give a thumbs up. What I see is gonna happen, like every other crisis, gold and silver will go down at first. Everything has to go down. Let's put this out there. Every single thing will go down, and gold and silver will get the momentum and shoot up.
So in other words, man, like a small recap, like we're kind of agreeing on one, it's better to look into long-term investments at the moment. Two, shorting is tempting, but it's risky. Third, everything will go down. Some will catch up again and some won't. Gold and silver have a good possibility of going up.
No, absolutely, yeah. I think it's the time for capital preservation in order to accumulate more wealth. Because, I mean, for our generation, crises don't happen every year. Or then, I mean, let's get this out there. And after crisis, there is wealth to be made. There is wealth distributed across all classes. And I think if you play the equation right, you'll be in the right trend.
Gold and silver. Physical, it's okay to trust the future goals that you can buy online.
Depends. What's the portion of portfolio you want it to be in gold and silver, especially in times of crisis. If you need to liquidate, I don't know. Something to think about. Because if you have physical gold and you want to go to the gold dealer and you want to sell your gold in a crisis, you might not be able to sell it.
Sorry, I'm asking lots of questions, but I find this a good opportunity to get my own questions answered. Do you have any insights of how the euro will correlate, how Europe will work? Like we've been talking a lot about the American economy based on the dollar, what comes with the dollar, everything that correlates with it. Like how is the euro doing now? Like how will it be affected in this whole thing? Should we diversify our cash holding or should we just own local currency to buy our commodities with it?
It depends when you talk about like what's the amount of cash. If we're talking about a couple of thousands, then there's no reason to convert. But in general, I think the dollar is reaching the top right now. I mean, it's hard to say if it reached or not since the Fed keeps injecting liquidity into the freaking market. So it's reaching the top and it's a good strategy to actually short the dollar. And I see more benefit in the pound and euro actually picking up, and also the yen.
Really? Mm-hmm. What's your logic? Like, can you elaborate more?
Part of it because if you look at the money, where is it flowing right now? We all know that the money is flowing into the United States. If you look at all the major indices like S&P, CAC for Canada, Nikkei for Japan, DAX for Germany, you see an exponential gains in the S&P, which shows you all the money was going to the US economy. And with what the Fed is doing and injecting so much liquidity in the market and having the interest, at first the interest rate were not low, people kept on buying the dollars, which reached its peak. It cannot go any higher, and it's time to go lower. And I think the other currencies might do better. Not so sure on the euro, because Europe is handling a huge recession right now. Maybe on the sterling yen side more, but also, I don't know, UK is also going into a recession. So
yen. We're left out with the yen.
Safer. But I still think the euro sterling option is better than the dollar in the short term right now. Yeah.
Is there any way to buy Chinese currency, man? Yuan?
I never tried, so I honestly don't know.
I never
For sure,
tried.
you can buy options on it.
You can options?
Yeah, of course, like futures.
Because it's not pegged anymore, you know. It's definitely it's controlled by the government. It's a free market right now, but it's controlled by the government. You know?
I think this is a good thing, no? Like if China is doing well in the economy at the time being, I think I can trust their currency.
I'm not sure because they always want to be on the side of we want to be the exporter nation, and the way to always do that, you always need to devalue your currency, so you always have more competition. So I honestly don't know. It's kind of a risky play.
Okay, I'm gonna do another recap. Yen is a good option. Gold and silver is a good option. Chances are everything will go down, and then some stuff will go up, some won't. Shorting is too risky. If you wanna do it at your own risk.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
You can easily get squeezed out of the market.
Okay, what other asset classes? Bitcoin. We got the Bitcoin specialist, man. You talk a lot about Bitcoin. Now it's your chance again, man.
I want to hear your opinion on it, actually.
My opinion is vague. Partly is because we still do not have the fundamentals in place. We have the fundamentals for blockchain. But who's going to be the next star? Is it Bitcoin? Is it going to be Ethereum? Is it going to be a new cryptocurrency in the next 5-10 years? I honestly don't know.
But how do
I know blockchain will be there. I just know what will be the best cryptocurrency out there.
I've just read an article today that says the SP 500 has been more volatile than Bitcoin in the past week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably the only week of the year, though.
Yeah, I mean, you never see that much volatility. You know?
Yeah, but man, this shows you that there is a chance that Bitcoin is a safer option in times of a crisis, no? Like it is the first time since Bitcoin came that we're in a crisis.
Do you think the general public understands it?
Not really, man. But the size of the market isn't that big. Bitcoin isn't for the general public.
But this is the question. If the general public are not really understanding what blockchain is, what cryptocurrency is, you still won't see that fundamentals being placed. You don't see that money flowing into it. And part of the reason that cryptocurrency keeps going up and down is liquidity issues. I mean, liquidity moves the market really fast.
And no speculations around it. And I think also, I mean, it cannot really be a safe asset because, as you said, people don't know about it, and it's kind of too early. Also, given the size of the market, to be considerable as a safe asset.
No, I agree.
I mean, me too. I wouldn't really recommend anyone to hold portfolios of Bitcoin right now. I would say in cash and maybe wait for the bottom because, according to what you say, and I mean, chances are Bitcoin might follow the same route.
Yep.
Farmland. Farmland, it's a personal favorite for Warren Buffett, man.
Especially Bitcoin?
No, farmland. It's a personal favorite for Warren Buffett. Who, I remember he said on a speech once, like gold is nice, gold is shiny. You can look at it, you can enjoy it. You know, you can wear it as jewelry. But when shit hit the fan, farmland will produce stuff for you. You know, if you don't have the power to produce stuff in it, the least that you can do is rent it. Historically, it has been the asset that appreciated the most in value in times of crisis.
Not everyone can afford farmland, though. It's very like capital intensive and also like time consuming as well.
But still, if you own the land, it's just a property. Buying farmland is cheaper than buying a house. You can control the size of the property that you wanna have. You don't need to invest in it now. Just hold it.
Oh, so you're thinking real estate and lands in general are going to have an upside?
No, not real estate and lands, farmlands. The specific category of farmland, not real estate.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I honestly don't have any knowledge about it, so
Yeah.
I really can't comment.
طيب, real estate, now that we're at it, what do you think the real estate market will happen?
Not so sure. Interest rates are 0%. People are going to tend to get more loans and buy houses now. So I don't know if that's going to increase the bubble. So
Increase.
Basha, you have questions?
Isn't the Middle East leasing from Sudan right now? I actually don't know, man. I don't get this. طب اسمع, I wanna have this exercise. You have $100,000. How are you going to invest it? What will be your portfolio with $100,000? Let's do it in rounds, man.
let's do it in rounds.
Where do you
I'll have most of it in cash. I'll save some for gold and silver, but most of it is going to be in cash for me to reinvest. The idea.
50,000 in cash?
Yep.
Dollar?
This is a hard question, if I want to keep it in the dollar or not. But I could either diversify it between all the currencies, or I'll keep it in the dollar. But I'll definitely diversify it.
Okay, and then you got another 50. What are you going to do with it?
Between commodities, gold and silver.
Gold and silver. Franche?
I would probably keep money ready to buy Bitcoin and cheap stuff. I would short maybe with 5,000. So 5% of total. I don't know, because I think like the nice idea about having some money is that if we really have a crisis and then people will start selling stuff. So for example, Basha, you know me, I like art. So for example, I would also resort to this type of investment, which is not necessarily financial. I don't know if we're including this kind of investment in the portfolios or not.
So unconventional store of value, basically.
Yeah, because generally stuff depreciates during these times, and like during the last years, like for example, art, watches, they all been going up, and if there's a crisis, people will sell them, and prices would go down a lot. So I think it's very interesting to tap in there.
I never.
And if you want, and if you actually want to stay in the stock market, like one thing, if I would advise is just buying stables and discretionary spend stocks. Walmart, places that are going to be selling right now. Because while everybody was going down, Walmart was going up.
Defensive stocks, man. Defensive stocks, like the necessities will increase in value. Walmart prices went down in 2008, but then it went up again.
True. So these balancing techniques, especially when a crisis happens, whenever you have more onto the riskier stock side, you want to reduce your risk and buy more stables and non-discretionary spend stocks.
I've been thinking about my 100,000. I think, man, I'll do 40,000 in cash divided into Jordanian currency, dollar, and yen. Apparently, based on your advice, I was looking for another currency. I didn't know what to get. I think I'll take yours on the yen. I'll probably do 20 gold and 20 silver. Physical. I want to have it in my socks drawer at home,
You should buy a nice safe.
And I got 20K left. I'll put 10K, man, in Bitcoin, and I will put 10K in a small farm property, which we can get. They are leasing to grow over there. This is the comment. People are investing in Sudan, in farmlands in Sudan, apparently. We got this comment, but I always thought that investing in real estate as homes or apartments, you can rent it and maybe get paid back slowly from the beginning. But with farmland, it's a while afterwards to profit from it, no? Or was this about Warren Buffett investing farmland? I don't know. Like the thing with like all I can do at this time around is to study previous recessions. When I studied the previous recession, I saw the pattern that farmlands always increases in value. When I read a couple of books for Warren Buffett, he also highlighted the importance of it. Especially, man, now that we see people are more drifting towards sustainability, we want to go to a greener form of economy, have a community-based way of living. So probably I'm more emotional when it comes to a farmland. I think I don't know. Connecting back to human roots. It's a good opportunity, if I'm gonna buy an asset, why not buy an asset that I personally like as well?
Yeah, I think it's all very nice from an ideological point of view, but practically, man, like getting a farmland and living like this means you already have secured your financial stability, because nowadays you can't just go and immediately change your life and go back to a farm, because I mean, not everyone can actually afford that.
I agree, but the point is, it's not that I want to move next month and start living in a farm. But I think it's a good opportunity to buy a farmland, to buy a farm property now. If I didn't produce stuff in it, its value will appreciate with time.
Like, any special reason for why now and not according to what we discussed, like in 6 months?
Maybe in 6 months. I don't know, man. Like the thing with the properties, it has its own geographical dimensions, and you got to study the local market of it, right? I don't know when is the best time to buy a property. Well, again, as you said, in times of a crisis, you will get good catches. Like lots of people want to buy, sell stuff to get the instant cash, to get liquidity. Probably I'll be on the hunt,
Yep. I think the best advice is hold your cash, look for the opportunity, because it's going to come. Maybe not now, maybe at the end of the year, but yeah.
Asha, where would you buy your land, in Jordan?
I don't think so, man. I'm really considering Asia. I've been talking about this property that I found in Nepal, man. I found a nice piece of land in Nepal, nice community, amazing people. You can develop it into a hostel, a farm. You can do stuff with it, man.
I think emerging markets in general are a good catch. Like if I want to look later on in the future, I would look to invest more in emerging markets.
100%. Isma, talking about this, I've seen interest rates on when you put your money in a bank for long term in Nepal, they give you 10% interest.
Yeah.
10%, man. I mean, if I know for a fact that I'll be living in Nepal, I don't mind it, If my
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but this always, you got to take into consideration the country risk and everything around it. Like what happened in Turkey, like they were giving 24%, but the Turkish lira was going down. So like, but all in all, you're not making.
But if the Turkish lira went down and your economy relies on local economy, you're not really affected. Look at Syria, man. After 8 years of what's going on in Syria, the Syrian lira went down in value. But if you want to go buy stuff in Syria now, it's still cheaper than Jordan.
Yeah, that's because they don't import. It's actually made inside.
Exactly. The same logic applies to Turkey if you want to live in Turkey.
But actually, man, like even internally, your purchasing power kind of depreciates because you have a huge inflation. So you're not really that well off if you live in Turkey and your currency is in such a bad situation.
It depends on the economy, man. It depends if your economy depends on imports or
exactly. But it's very hard to today to find an economy that completely relies on itself. Like it's no one, I guess.
I think it depends on your own personal life. What are the things that you buy? I don't know. how simplistic the way of living is.
Basha, I have a question for you. How are you dealing with the coronavirus for you right now? How are you going to pay the employees their salaries for the next month?
We haven't really talked about it, man. Like I remember before the crisis, we sent a message to people: if you need your money anytime around, just let us know. But the thing is, man, like we're a cafe, like we pay per the hour, per an hour of work, you know. I'm not really obligated to pay monthly salaries. You get me?
Okay.
Just
Okay.
because the ethical part of it. So our plan is to have a staff meeting soon. Who, like the logic will be instead of having to lay off one of the staff, we gotta like divide this shock among all of us. So everybody will get damaged a bit instead of one losing his source of income. So that's our logic.
But do you have any cash flow issues? Are you
Actually,
seeing any cash flow issues?
we do have. So if like if the shops didn't open in a month, we'll be in a tough position. I would say the
Okay.
least. You
Okay.
know, I don't think we can rely on Jordan on any government support. You know, for small businesses. Like I'm not even considering this.
I wonder if they even have the capacity to support it.
I don't think so, man. Like the least that we can get is tax cuts, you know, instead of
Yeah.
being forced to pay this stuff, which I doubt also, you know, because the government will be in tough position. The government has been doing decent job so far, so you know the people will be more inclined to follow the orders, you know.
No, no, I get it. I see there's going to be a liquidity issue of a cash flow issue around the globe anyway. I mean, we all know that 70 to 80% of the economy consists of small to medium-sized businesses, and these businesses are going to get affected heavily. They don't sell for a month, they have cash flow issues.
100%, man, 100%. Well, we still didn't talk to the landlord. Like these whole questions, man, will come up soon. You know, now everybody is occupied with the virus issue. You know, nobody is thinking straight about the economical situation that we're at. You know, and the chain, man, is like bank loaning money to someone to build a property so he can rent it, and I'm the one here who's in this part of the supply chain where I'm renting a place and I have a business, and then I have employees who work for me and I pay them salary, and this whole chain, man, is collapsing. So I guess the most ethical course of action would be for each part of it to suffer a bit, you know.
Yep.
But the hardest point in this equation would be the landlords. I don't know how the landlords will react.
Yeah, good. Please keep me updated. I'm very intrigued of how they were going to handle it. Are they going to be like, okay, don't pay for the next 2 months, or you got to pay?
It's tricky, man. It's tricky. Like, at the end of the day, you know, like lots of the landlords in Jordan aren't super millionaires, you know. Lots of them rely on the income of renters. So they enjoy an upper middle class way of living, but they don't enjoy a high class way of living, you know. I don't know how they will react. But chances are, man, if you have I don't know, an apartment building and you're renting out, you're already used to high standards of living. You already got your villa that you got it on a mortgage. You have a fancy car. You will start suffering, you know. You'll start feeling it. Actually, which segment of the society do you think will be affected the more? Is it the bottom, the middle class, upper middle class, or the well-off? As a percentage of their own wealth, you know, which one will be suffering the most?
But I mean, I see that we have a generation shift. I see there's a wealth change shift. So maybe it will change in the equation. But in general, I definitely expect that the bottom and lower middle class will get a huge hit.
I don't know.
Most of these people also work on hourly paid wages, you know, like the electricians, barbers, all of these industries, you know.
But man, those people will still be needed, and I'm thinking seriously about it. Like at the end of the day, you know, you still need your plumber, you still need your electrician. You don't really need your local cafe, you know.
Yeah, but in times like this, you can say, instead of getting my electricity sorted off right now, if it's not a huge issue, I'm gonna postpone it. With everything shut down, like the movement is tough right now, you know.
And I mean, for example, here in Italy, I don't think any plumber or electrician is working since, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month, maybe.
But this is in the current status. This is in the current situation. I'm talking about if we're saying that the recession will last for over a year, then I'm concerned about the next 2 years. You know, as a small business owner, I'm concerned about those 2 years. If there will be a recession in the economy, the most logical outlook on this is I'll be spending less money on luxury, you know, on fun stuff, and I'll spend more on the necessities. So I'm really expecting to lose customer base with time.
Yeah, I mean, if you take Jordan as an example, I don't know, the economy in Jordan works kind of weird. We've been in recession for how long? Yeah, the only thing we have is to spend on services, you know, in Jordan. The only thing we have is to spend on services.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think as a bar, like, I don't know how affected you can actually be in the end. You know, people will always come by for a coffee or something. Like they won't cut this type of expenses, I guess.
You don't think so?
Not really.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm really concerned about the average life of someone who's used to upper middle class way of living. If we're getting through a depression, this will be a major shift in their quality of life. I'm really concerned about those who have medium businesses, not small businesses, medium businesses that are already used to a certain way of living, and chances are they are used to this, but they already have their mortgages and loans and stuff. I think the quality of life, in terms of as a percentage of wealth and quality of life, those people are be the one suffering the most, you know, and they aren't prepared for it. When we're talking about the bottom, first they have most of the people in the bottom side of the economy, they have the skill that they can work on that is needed by society. But historically, we've been always looking down on them. But these skills will be needed, and those are the necessities. They will still have their stuff, right?
No, I see the point you're making. It's valid.
And if you're into sociology or psychology and you have a master's degree in it, I don't know what kind of job will you have, you know, all those, I don't know. You know?
But at the same time, you know, this crisis kind of shows you still have new opportunities to explore, such as smart working or working from home. I mean, the guy could have an online course, you know, and just get maybe $20 an hour, have 2 hours of online class. So I think you also have to take into account that, like, this can actually also make us change our the normal way we do things and explore new opportunities.
Yeah.
So
I think this crisis is going to shift a lot of stuff. Maybe we tend to go more automation because of it. Maybe there's a lot of
definitely
stuff that's going to happen.
I think it's time for blockchain to shine.
Well,
as a method of payment, man. As a method of payment, I think now it's the time.
I don't know, honestly, man. I think it can be definitely. But like, why precisely now? Because of the crisis you think will follow?
And for example, in Jordan, banks have been closed for a couple of days, you know? At least I know in a decentralized network, I can always transfer my money, you know, nothing is closed. Right?
But you still can transfer your money, even if the banks are closed.
There are some issues, man. There are some issues. I've been trying to purchase something online. The online banking isn't working. I couldn't go to the bank to get my issues, you know. In a smooth way, yeah, it works, you know, but not always things are smooth.
Yeah. My question is, why don't you think the banks will do their own cryptocurrency?
But that was Ripple, man. There is already one, you know. But the thing is, man, with cryptocurrencies, the way I see it is there are lots of people who are believers in the ideology of decentralization of currency, you know, and those people represent the majority of the fan base and influential figures when it comes to cryptocurrency. cryptocurrencies. And at the end of the day, we already talked about how everything is about the trust in the system, the trust in a currency. If those people hate a certain currency, they will have negative impact on it. This is what I think.
It is. The only thing that I see within cryptocurrency that is challenging is the volatility aspect of it. If I want to consider it as a currency right now, I don't want to have to worry tomorrow that my value might drop 30%.
I think on this point, many central banks are actually considering to launch central bank digital currency.
Mm-hmm.
For example, China is exploring it. And of course, as you say, it will be a stable coin. So it will probably be a digital form of the normal currency, like fiat currency, which is backed by fiat reserves.
But then what's the point?
I mean, you could still use the advantages of the blockchain. I agree that's no point, but it's just the normal way money will change. Right now you have digital money anyway.
Yeah.
So it would be just another way of having your money digital. It would be more traceable.
I think
I'm not from an ideological point of view. It kind of makes you subject to a higher degree of control, but it really depends on the way they do it. I mean, I'm pretty sure China will adopt a more a strong approach in terms of control. I do hope other countries take a more privacy protecting approach, kind of.
And I want to highlight something, like in the past 10 years, we've been in a bull market and we've always seen the volatility of Bitcoin. Yet at the end of the day, after those 10 years, the strongest bull in the history of the SP 500, Bitcoin had made more gains than the SP 500. This is point number one. The point number two that I want to highlight is I can think of 2 times in modern history that there was a crisis and Bitcoin worked well. The first example is the one that we're having now, which is the past 2 weeks. Bitcoin has been less volatile than the SP 500. The second example was Venezuela with its currency collapsing. Lots of people switched to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin proved itself to be a more stable asset in times of a crisis. So we don't have enough information yet to draw this correlation, but I think it's a valid correlation, but we need more data to explore this. Which my hypothesis would be that Bitcoin will act as a stable store of value in times of a crisis. So I want to spend 10% of my 100K bit on this logic, especially when you have limited supply of it.
Yeah, I think it's. I agree. Of course, there is a use case. That's also the idea. Like we are talking about investing in Bitcoin from like kind of a speculative angle, but we do not have to forget that actually it's like people in Venezuela do not buy Bitcoin because they want to speculate. They buy Bitcoin because their currency hyperinflated, and compared to their currency, Bitcoin is a much better asset. So I think it also has a real value, and this will be the source of its future worth rather than speculation.
Ahwal, I want to have one last question, which is a bit specific to the case of Jordan, and probably you have more information and insights on this. What do you think about the Jordanian dinar being pegged to the dollar? Will it work the same way, or we're at risk? Is there a chance of devaluation, or will just follow the American economy? Have you ever looked into this?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the central bank balance sheet, I think the Jordanian central bank balance sheet is healthy. So I think the pegged system will stay in place. I don't think they have any desires to remove it. I specifically do not understand why they picked it to that price in the 1980s. I don't know what year it was. It's too high for me. We're not a manufacturing country. And one of the reasons we're not able to manufacture is this as well. Because you can get it cheaper from Syria, you can get it cheaper from Iraq, you can get it cheaper from anywhere else.
But it makes sense because we're an importing country. So it makes some sense to have a strong currency that is pegged to the dollar at a higher rate. So it makes importing cheaper somehow,
It makes sense if you are, for instance, an oil country like Kuwait. I'm exporting most of my oil. I want my they're gonna buy it anyway. I want my currency to be more expensive, but I don't see any solution right now for our currency to not be pegged. I think it's gonna create more chaos than what we have right now. So I don't think a devaluation will come.
Yeah. So you don't think one should think of like owning dollars instead of Jordanian dinar to hedge that risk? But if you want to diversify currency, you should own other currencies such as yen or euro or pound or whatever.
I mean, okay, when you look at the country risk, I will tell you, like, it will always seem that Jordan will not be able to sustain that pegged system. And people were saying that for the past 10 years, honestly.
And
But-
it's been, yeah.
And I think they're going to sustain it. It's going to create more chaos.
I agree, man. I second you with this. I just wanted to confirm this with you to have another input on it.
Unless a huge crisis comes and then they can't have the peg, and I don't know.
Anyhow, guys, it was a lovely conversation. Wish you good luck.
As usual.